What's up, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Scouting Combine here on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Eric, how we doing today?
I'm great, man. We made it, right? We finally made it to the draft. Only got a couple more hours till hopefully we can be talking about, a rookie that the Dolphins actually drafted instead of, hundreds of guys that they might draft.
Of course, man, the draft day is finally here. We're only a couple hours away. And before we get started, I wanted to let you guys know we will have a day one draft day live stream. Eric will be part of it. I believe you'll be there most of the day, right?
Yep, I should be there pretty much the whole time.
Hurricane Man Fins up, baby. Unfortunately, the Dolphins do not have that trademark for the hashtag anymore. It's hashtag Go Fins. Although I like Fins for the win so much better. What about you, Eric?
I don't know. Like I said, it's still kind of new to me. I'm partial to fins up, but I'm sure it'll grow on me.
I think it'll grow on me as well. Well, let's go ahead. We'll go ahead and get started doing our final first round mock. Then we're going to go ahead and talk about some day two and day three prospects for the Dolphins as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Just like last time, we will be doing alternating picks. I will be doing odds, and Eric will be doing evens. We're going to go ahead and get started. I think everybody knows the first pick of the 2024 NFL Draft. The Chicago Bears select quarterback Caleb Williams, USC.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big shock if that's not the way that one goes. Then second, I think that it's pretty much a consensus at this point that, the expectation is for Jaden Daniels to go to the Commanders with that second pick.
Jaden Daniels. Wow. Now, the betting markets have shifted a little bit. Like they do overwhelmingly favor Jaden Daniels as well. But earlier on this morning, there was a post on Reddit and on Twitter from Joe Theis, a video recording of Joe Theismann on Washington radio, stating that he's heard from from one general manager that Drake May will be the pick for the Washington Commanders. Now, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen just yet, but if it does happen, it will absolutely shock draft Twitter, draft analysts, and the NFL world overall.
Absolutely.
With pick number 3, we do know that the New England Patriots are listening in on offers as well. I think they're going to stay put and stick with Drake May right here at pick number 3. They get their quarterback that they need.
All right, so 4, we got the Cardinals here. Are there any trade offers here? They're a team that could be looking to.
There's like 9 trade offers. You have the Giants, Vikings, Saints, Jags, Steelers, Eagles, Bucks, Ravens, and Chiefs.
All right. So what? Giants are going down to 6.
Right.
What are the other ones? What are the other picks that we're looking at?
You have Minnesota.
Minnesota, that's what. So that's 10, 11.
11 and 23.
All right.
Minnesota may be looking to get up, maybe potentially get a quarterback like J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah, let's go with the Minnesota deal. I think that you're right. I think that they could be a team that would be looking to go up. And I think that, at 11, I think the Cardinals would still feel like they could, have a decent shot at one of the big 3 receivers.
11 and 23, and do you think they'll give a late round pick as well? Which one? 129, 157?
Let's kind of go in the middle there with the 157.
The 157. We'll go ahead and offer the trade. That is a steep trade offer that the Vikings offer. I wonder if they'll.
Yeah, so I think anytime you're looking at quarterbacks, they'd be, if you're coming up for a quarterback, it's probably going to cost more than, moving up for a wide receiver, defensive tackle, any other position, and teams know that. So I would say that, if the Vikings are indeed trading up to 4, that it would be for J.J. McCarthy.
All right, J.J. McCarthy is the pick for the Minnesota Vikings. 4 straight quarterbacks. Do you remember the last time when that happened in the NFL draft? 4 straight quarterbacks going 1, 2, 3, 4.
I do not, and I will be surprised if it does happen that way. I am not nearly number 4 overall high on JJ McCarthy, but quarterbacks are what they are in the NFL, and if you don't have one, then you got to do everything you can to get one.
All right, and we have our special guest for today's special, so Alfredo Arteaga of 3 yards per carry. Alf, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's draft day.
It's draft day. Well, you got us right here in the middle of our first round mock draft. Eric is doing evens. I'm doing odd picks, so I have the Los Angeles Chargers here at pick number 5. And the betting market has the Chargers taking J.C. Latham, overwhelmingly the betting favorite here, but they do need wide receiver help. If I'm looking at some trade targets, if I'm the Chargers, you have the Rams at 19 and the Cowboys at 24. I really don't think the Chargers would want to trade back too far. And we do know that the Rams would like to trade up into the top 10 to pick up, either a great offensive player, an offensive lineman, potentially a wide receiver, potentially Brock Bowers, or even a defender. But if I'm Los Angeles, I think I stay pat right here and I take the best wide receiver on the board, get Justin Herbert some help, and pick up Marvin Harrison Jr.
That makes a lot of sense, although I will say this. If they do trade out far enough where it's not Marvin Harrison Jr., like let's say they traded with Minnesota and went all the way down to 11 maybe, and let's say Rome Odunze is out there, that's always a possibility, but I would still bet on an offensive tackle because if you look back at Harbaugh's history,
Right.
he never invested a lot of recruiting resources at Stanford. They never invested much as far as free agency dollars or draft capital at wide receiver with the 49ers. Then he goes
Right.
to Michigan, and they spent the least amount of NIL money on wide receivers. The man just does not like wide receivers.
All right. Not at all. Right here, we already have
But yeah, Marvin
Vikings.
Harrison is a guy that you don't pass up at number 5.
You don't pass up on him. And then we had the Vikings trade up to Arizona for J.J. McCarthy with a steep trade offer. Eric, you're on the board with the Giants.
Yeah, so with the Giants looking at their likely options, they could try to trade up or they could be looking at quarterback, but obviously they can't trade up at this point, and the quarterbacks they would possibly be looking for are already off the board. So they'll be looking at a receiver most likely in this scenario, and I think that in this case they would go with Malik Neighbors.
Malik Neighbors. Do you think they could potentially trade back and get some more picks, or you think they stay pat here?
I mean, if it was just a couple of picks, maybe, but I think especially with Harrison going off the board at 5, they'd be very hesitant to go too far back and possibly miss out on all 3 of those top 3 receivers.
All right, we'll go ahead with Malik Neighbors at pick number 6. Number 7, I think everybody knows what the Tennessee Titans are doing over here. They're drafting an offensive tackle. This is probably going to be the first offensive lineman on the board. It's going to be Joe Alt. All right, we have Atlanta here as a wild card pick. Atlanta's been mocked to grab a defender, and you also have 4 trade options that Atlanta could look for to recoup some picks.
Atlanta has the most commonly mocked name, and that's Dallas Turner. He shows up over and over and over and over again. So at this point, I would be shocked if they didn't take Dallas Turner.
Yeah, I agree with that. That was going to be, my pick for the same reasons. That seems to be, outside of the top, 2 picks, one of the most dependable, that I've seen around, that it seems like they are very interested in Dallas Turner, and I think that's the direction that they would go.
And, I was speaking with a source of mine who's plugged in with the Atlanta area sports team, and he was telling me it's going to come down to Dallas Turner or Laiatu Latu. And given that Dallas Turner has been mocked at 8, he's the heavy favorite. But if they were to trade back and recoup some picks towards the later part, like let's say, for example, the Rams wanted to trade up to the top 10 and the Falcons move over to pick 19, Turner might not be available, so they could, potentially select Laiatu Latu over there. So Dallas Turner is the pick for the Atlanta Falcons. All right, the Chicago Bears at pick number 9. Now, If you go ahead and check out the betting lines right here, Byron Murphy's over/under is 9.5. The Bears have been linked to Byron Murphy on the defensive line, and they could also grab some wide receiver help for Caleb Williams or an offensive tackle. If I'm the Bears, I really don't have a lot of picks in this draft to help my future quarterback, Caleb Williams. I'm going to see if I can trade back and grab some picks. And the first team that could trade with me is Indianapolis, Seattle, Pittsburgh, Philly, Dallas. Now, what would the Bears be willing to go back to pick 15 to grab an offensive lineman or maybe even a defender to bolster up that defense? I think Ryan Poles, if he was smart here, he would grab some more picks and some more players to help Caleb Williams out. And I'm taking this trade with the Indianapolis Colts. I'm grabbing 15, 46, and 151 for pick number 9. I'm going to offer that trade, and I'm going to have the Indianapolis Colts select wide receiver Rome Odunze. And I feel like this could be a wild card over here. You pair up Rome Odunze and Michael Pittman Jr. with Anthony Richardson Jr. as well. That could form a formidable offensive group alongside Jonathan Taylor for the Indianapolis Colts to potentially catch up to the Houston Texans in the AFC South.
And there's a key thing here. If you can go to where the players are and put the wide receivers up, if you could do that right there. Okay, and now move all the way up.
Like this?
Yeah, like to the next highest ranked guy.
A.D. Mitchell.
Go all the way up. That's the next.
Well. Yep.
The next highest ranked guy is A.D. Mitchell, and we're on pick 10.
Yep.
Okay, then that's going to tell you a lot right there. Rome Odunze is probably, and that's if this board is correct or even consistent with most boards. Although I've seen a lot of boards that are jumbled for who is wide receiver 4. But once you get past the top 3, okay, a lot of those guys, if you read some of the publications that are out there, it's so mixed that you have everything from Brian Thomas at 4 to Xavier Worthy at 4 to even Ladd McConkey at 4. So it does make sense that tonight, when you hear that there's a trade up in the first round, it's going to be most likely for Rome Odunze, because he is consistently the wide receiver 3 in this class in most boards and in most publications. So he is the most likely to be traded up for.
Yeah. All right, Eric, you're up for the New York Jets.
Yeah, so the Jets, I think, are kind of in a similar situation to, the situation we've talked about with the Dolphins, where, they have a need in the near future for offensive tackles. They have Tyron Smith on the left. They have Morgan Moses on the right, but both of those guys are on the wrong side of 30. They have Vera Tucker playing guard right now. I think they could look at another future offensive tackle that has the potential to come in and play guard today. And that would give them a very strong offensive line for now and would give them some really nice pieces to have some cornerstones on the line going forward. I think that they would look at Troy Fatano here and, have him play guard for a year or, 2, and then slide out the left tackle for Tyron Smith.
Well, here's the one issue I have with that, although I do agree that Troy Fatano would be a great pick for the Jets, and I actually bet that at plus 900 yesterday. The Jets did sign John Simpson, and they gave him a pile of money to play left guard, and they got Elijah Vera Tucker to play right guard. So if they draft Troy Fatano, he's there essentially waiting for Tyron Smith to break down.
That's a good call, Alf. I knew about Smith and Moses. I had kind of missed the Simpson signing. Let's see. So with that in mind, since we didn't make the pick yet and we've got some new information, another name that's been talked about for the Jets quite a bit that would, add a weapon in their passing game is going to be Brock Bowers.
All right. Brock Bowers does make a lot of sense over here. Gives Aaron Rodgers, if he's healthy enough to play and nothing else happens to him, another weapon for Aaron Rodgers as the current Jets quarterback.
Yeah, Jets gave John Simpson 2 years, $18 million, $11 million guaranteed. Yeah, he's the starter at left guard.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, pick number 11 here for Arizona. They have 6 trade offers, and they have a boatload of picks. They have 3 first-rounders here right now. And I do think they are going to make 3 first-round selections in this draft, specifically if they do trade back here. And they do have a lot of needs. They need a wide receiver. They need an offensive lineman. They need a defensive lineman. They need a cornerback as well. One name that's circling around the top 10, or maybe even outside the top 10, is Texas defensive tackle, defensive lineman, Byron Murphy. And I'm having him go over to the Arizona Cardinals for Jonathan Gannon's defense.
Mm-hmm.
All right, pick number 12 is the Denver Broncos. They're an interesting team in this draft, Eric.
Yeah, they are. They just traded for Zach Wilson. I don't know whether that's because they don't necessarily like the quarterback options that are in this draft, and they're kind of going the same route that Miami did when we picked up Josh Rosen to see, what he would do, or whether it was just, to get some competition. I'd like to see what the trade offer is there. I do think that quarterback could still be something they're considering, but I don't know if they're going to go at 12 for a quarterback. So what is the trade offer that's on the board there?
The trade offer that's on the board there is for the Kansas City Chiefs. They have 32, 64, 95, and in this mock, we can also force trades if need be as well.
Yeah, I don't want to get into that and extend this too long. So with that in mind, I don't think they want to go down to 32.
Right. But the Chiefs do want to grab a left tackle, future left tackle as well. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. I think that at this point, McCarthy's off the board. I think it's a little high for Knicks to go, especially after they, invested a little bit in Zach Wilson and may be interested in seeing what he has. There's a couple of cornerbacks they're looking at, Quinion Mitchell, Terrion Arnold. I think the idea there would be that Surtain's going to be coming up on a big contract here pretty soon, and it would be nice for them to have, a guy on a rookie contract playing opposite of him. So with this pick here, I'm going to go with Quinion Mitchell.
All right. One of the best cornerbacks, or the number 1 rated quarterback by Scouts Inc. on the board, goes to Denver. Pick number 13 is the Las Vegas Raiders. I think they're going to be going for a quarterback over here, and I don't think they'll go after Bo Nix. I think they'll go after Michael Penix Jr., quarterback out of Washington. So that makes it 5 quarterbacks within the top 15 picks. All right, pick number 14 is yours, Eric, with the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, so I think that the Saints are going to be looking for offensive line help. Can you go over to see what tackles are on the board right now? Should be most of them still.
Yep, you have Fuaga, Fatanu, Olu, Latham. I'll add the interior offensive lineman as well. Mims, Barton, Jackson Powder Johnson.
So I would say here, I think that, J.C. Latham has been mocked to them quite a bit from the ones that I've seen. Any of those offensive tackles are kind of interchangeable, similar to, wide receiver 4 and down. I've seen these tackles listed in any order. So I think that J.C. Latham would be a good fit here for the Saints.
Wow. And you think over Fuaga and Fatanu over Latham?
Like I said, it's kind of a toss up.
Okay.
I could see it going in any order with those three.
All right, with pick number 15, the Chicago Bears traded with the Indianapolis Colts. They picked up their quarterback. They are in the market for a wide receiver, maybe an edge defender, defensive lineman. Looking at the Bears' offensive line depth chart as well, they have left tackle Braxton Jones, left guard Tevin Jenkins, center Coleman Shelton, right guard Nate Davis, and right tackle Darnell Wright. They have invested heavily.
In my opinion, that is the worst offensive line in football.
Really? Why is that?
They really have only two useful players on that entire line. Tevin Jenkins has been an absolute disappointment. Their left tackle is essentially a journeyman that just had a good season. Essentially that's Kendall Lamb. Their right tackle is their only blue chip player on that offensive line. Right. I don't know how they don't take an offensive lineman in this draft to start.
Yeah. And that's actually where I was going with as well. And honestly, Eric, it's like a toss-up. Is it going to be Fuaga? Is it going to be Fautanu? Can Fautanu, is he going to play as a right guard in Chicago? Is he going to play as a left guard and slide Tevin Jenkins over to tackle? Like that's a pretty big mismatch. Fuaga has played left tackle as well, and I do think they'll take Fuaga, especially with that left tackle experience game as well. And he's been one of the higher rated offensive tackles by many, many scouts and analysts. And I'm going to go ahead with Talise Fuaga for the Chicago Bears. All right, Eric, Seattle Seahawks at pick 16.
Refresh my memory. Did you take Murphy earlier?
Yes, I
still
did.
On the board? Okay.
Byron
so
Murphy
with him, with him being off the board, this is going to be another team that needs help on the offensive line. Some of the guys, both Fuaga and Fatanu, are pretty good names for them. Some of the edges and corners that they were looking at are off the board at this point. So I think that they would go with what I feel is one of the safer picks in the draft in terms of guys that even if he can't play tackle now, I think he's going to be a high-level guard from the very beginning, with the potential to develop into a tackle in Troy Fatanu.
All right, Troy Fatanu is the pick for Seattle. They did lose guard Damian Lewis in free agency as well. They have really good offensive skill position group as well, and new first-year head coach Mike McDonald bolsters his offensive line to help Geno Smith the run game, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Tyler Lockett, and DK Metcalf. All right, pick number 17. It is the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars have needs pretty much everywhere. They need wide receiver help. They need defensive line help. They need linebacker help. They need defensive back here. And the highest rated player on the board right now is Cooper DeJean. Alf, who is the Jaguars defensive coordinator and what's their scheme like?
That's a good question because I think they changed them. Let me check that out.
Ryan Nielsen. He was with the Atlanta Falcons in 2023, and we do know that the Falcons defense wasn't the best yet, and they went through a change of defensive coordinators as well. I do think
he's going to run some type of version of a 4-3 flex, which is odd because they traded Brian Burns ended up with the Giants. Yeah. They paid Josh Allen, right?
Yes, they paid Josh Allen.
Okay, so that means that that's what he ran before, but why would you run a flex defense with Josh Allen? So I guess they're going to be multiple about it. So in other words, we don't know what the hell he's going to run.
Yeah. I do think they need cornerback help. desperately.
That's weird, right? Like if
Yeah.
Doug Peterson's still the coach, right? Like, why would you hire a guy to be your defensive coordinator that does not fit your talent?
Hey, that's the Jaguars organization for you, man.
He's obviously going to have to change the scheme. Like that's just a fact.
Yeah, I mean, they need help with corner. They need help along the defensive line. They need help as wide receivers.
They're actually okay. They're okay on the edge,
Yeah.
and they're good on the edge. They have a good safety. Yeah, they could use cornerback help, or they're off. The only thing that settled on that entire team is that offensive line. That offensive line from left to right is pretty much complete, and is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
So, wide receiver help, I guess. Is this where Quinyon Mitchell is like, if I were the Jaguars, if I were in their shoes, that's who I would have been targeting all along.
Yeah, but I think again, if they want to do a 4-2-5 flex, they want some versatility in the secondary. They can have Cooper DeJean play as a slot / free safety as well. I think they could potentially work with Cooper DeJean, but again, I'm not
do they have a lot of picks in the second round and third round?
The Jaguars, they have 17, 48, 96, 114.
Okay. They could take Cole Bishop at 48, so
yeah.
They could safely pass on Cooper DeJean here.
Do you think they could be in the market for Jerzon Newton?
You know what? That's what makes the most sense. They could use a really good 3-tech, and he's just perfect for them.
And Newton can line up on the edge as well. He can line up wide 7. He can play a 4-eye as well. So I guess Jerzon Newton is the pick here for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Eric, you have the Cincinnati Bengals up.
Yeah, so this is another team that has a lot of needs, but again, I feel like I'm on repeat here. The biggest one for them is going to be the offensive line, and this is something that kind of concerns me is if the Dolphins are looking at offensive line, we start seeing these guys flying off the board, and we're stuck in a 2020 situation again where we're looking at the 5th or 6th offensive tackle on the board. Thankfully, we're in a better position with the offensive line today than we were then, where I don't think that Greer is going to feel the need to force a pick like I felt like he did with Austin Jackson. But I think that the Bengals with Olu Fashanu on the board here would, go with the last of that top tier of tackles and bolster their offensive line.
Do you think Olu Fashanu is as a right tackle? You think he's going to take to it pretty well?
I think so. Fashanu is one of my favorite prospects in the draft. Like, he's got a great lower body, has a naturally wide base. His footwork is really good. So I don't think that he would have an issue moving over to tackle. I felt like he would have been the best tackle in last year's draft, and then he decided to go back. And when I first looked at him, I had looked at him only as a left tackle prospect just because I felt like he was that good that if somebody was drafting him, it was going to be somebody that needed a left tackle. But over the last week, I've kind of gone back and looked at him some more as somebody that, I think could even slide into guard and be very good there, for a short period until he bumped out the tackle. So I wouldn't have any concerns with him having the footwork to play right tackle.
Yeah, because I always have a hard time mocking people to the Bengals because they have Orlando Brown at left tackle, and you know how he essentially had it written into his contract. He had to play left tackle. Right. So if they take an offensive lineman, that has to be a consideration for them. So yeah, I tend to agree with that pick. That's a good pick for them if he can handle it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. We've talked about that the tackle class after Alt could fall any way. If Fuaga was there, that would be a perfect pick for Cincinnati. He's already proven that he can play on the right side and is, just as good as Fashanu. So if the board fell differently, I think that would be the guy that they'd really like to see fall to them.
Olu Fashanu is the pick for the Cincinnati Bengals, another protector for quarterback Joe Burrow. Los Angeles Rams at pick 19. And hey, they get their guy in edge rusher Laiatu Latu. Aaron Donald retired. They don't have anybody else on the defensive line that can impact a game. So I think they'll go ahead, pick up Laiatu Latu, and from my source, from what I've heard, they are interested in drafting him, and I think this stops the slide of Laiatu Latu.
That pick is completely open because that secondary is awful. So the Rams could use help in a lot of places.
Yeah. All right, pick number 20 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Eric, you're up.
Yeah, so I think for a long time this was the JPJ spot that he was being mocked here for a long time, and then as we're getting closer to the draft, we've seen his stock kind of fall. I wouldn't be surprised to see this being a surprise place for Graham Barton to go. They could also go with a tackle, like a Tyler Guyton. This would be a interesting spot for him because I think that Guyton has the physical tools to be just as good as those top offensive tackles, but I think that he, in my opinion, is definitely a notch lower. But I could see Pittsburgh getting somebody like that here that has that potential. If he plays up to his physical ability, could end up being one of the best tackles in this draft. For the purpose of this mock draft, I'm going to go with something a little safer, and I'm going to go with Terry and Arnold here, and give them some needed help in their secondary.
Ooh, what about Amarius Mims? Because he's been mocked to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he kind of fits the mold for the Steelers when they look for offensive linemen. I'm curious because you're choosing Terry and Arnold over Amarius Mims, and over Cooper DeJean as well for Pittsburgh.
I mean, Mims just hasn't played. Is he gonna play in the NFL? He is the most talented tackle in this draft. If he had played a full season of games, he'd probably be pushing Alt as the number one tackle on people's boards coming off. But he just has not played, and it's been because of injuries and things like that. I think he's got the flexibility to play both on the right and the left. I think that Georgia wanted him to play on the left. He just never stayed on the field long enough to do it. I think that he would be a risky pick. He's a big upside, big bust potential, in my opinion. It wouldn't surprise me to see him go here. Same along the similar lines as Guyton, only Guyton played a little more. Played a lot more. I think those are two guys that I could see going higher than expected just because physically, they're really good, and you don't always see tackles with the kind of physical talent that those two have falling down to the 20s, but for different reasons for both of them, they are falling, or they probably will fall. So yeah, I could definitely see Mims going to Pittsburgh here, but that would not be the way that I went.
All right, Terry and Arnold for the Steelers. So sounds like you value experience over projection, specifically for offensive linemen. Is that correct?
For the most part, yes, especially when you're picking in the first round. It's hard in the NFL if you're making first round picks that are not contributing early. So if you go with somebody like a Mims and they end up getting dinged up and only play 5 or 6 games, then you're going to take a lot of heat for making those type of picks. So I struggle with that in the top 15 or 20. As we get a little further down the draft, there's more opportunities to take risks on those type of players, in my opinion.
All right, here we are. Pick number 21 for your Miami Dolphins. And here's what the board looks like. Cooper DeJean, Jared Versey, Amarius Mims, A.D. Mitchell, Graham Barton, Nate Wiggins, Brian Thomas Jr., Kool-Aid McKinstry, Jackson Powers Johnson. That's what the board looks like right now.
Who took Xavier Worthy?
No one took Xavier Worthy.
Oh.
You're really interested in Xavier Worthy, aren't you?
Yeah, because I think he's completely undervalued. I think there's a strong possibility he won't make it to 21. You know, and I really don't understand the AD Mitchell stuff. Like, AD Mitchell's just not the better prospect. He's just bigger. He had less production. He has less production. He has worse advanced metrics. He has worse combine numbers. Worse makeup. He has bad tape. I don't get the AD Mitchell stuff. I haven't gotten it for a while.
I think it's more so about the athleticism and projection of a guy of his size for AD Mitchell. And when we're talking with, about AD Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, and the Texas offense as a whole, there have been character concerns that have popped up with AD Mitchell, especially about his attitude on the field, specifically on how he, runs his routes. Like, he gives up towards the end.
He peaks. You could see it on film all the time. AD Mitchell peaks back at the quarterback all the time. Like, okay, you're not throwing me the ball, I'm done. You know? And what I don't understand, I really don't understand it. He's been teammates with Xavier Worthy for 3 years. So we have 3 years of tape, one guy against the other. One guy has the entire offense built around him. That's Xavier Worthy. One guy has double the production, Xavier Worthy. Yet people are projecting AD Mitchell ahead of Xavier Worthy. Why? There's no reason.
AD Mitchell was with the Bulldogs for 2021 and 2022.
Yeah, but I'm saying look at their production for a head-to-head for 3 years.
Right. And you're looking...
And then together last year.
Yeah. A lot of the AD Mitchell truthers or the AD Mitchell stands, if you want to call them, routinely go back to Quinn Ewers and just the offensive makeup of the Longhorns. We have Archie Mins here, Xavier Worthy. No, thank you. That's what they have said. That's what I have read. I haven't been able to watch a lot of AD Mitchell or Xavier Worthy tape as well, so I'm letting you do the talking on here.
There's a lot of things that I don't understand in this draft after reviewing some of the tape and doing my own board. And I think we're going to see some of it tonight. I would not be surprised in the least bit if Kool-Aid McKinstry goes ahead of Terry and Arnold. That's another one that, because it's entirely possible that he's going to be much more attractive as a man corner than Terry and Arnold is as a more quote unquote complete corner.
All right.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I have Kool-Aid as the top corner on my board. I went with Quinion Mitchell earlier, just trying to, not lean completely on my board versus, some of the other ones that we're working from. But I also would not be surprised to see Kool-Aid McKinstry go higher than what some people think.
All right. The Miami Dolphins have been on the clock for a very long time here. And I'm going to make the decision for the Dolphins. You have a lot of good players on the board. Dolphins don't have any pick in the 3rd or 4th round as well. And I'm looking to trade. I'm not moving back more than 4 or 5 spots right here. I want to be ahead of Buffalo. In this sense, I want to see if any of the teams could go ahead and block a wide receiver for Buffalo, whether it be Brian Thomas Jr., whether it be Xavier Worthy, or an edge rusher, edge defender as well. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and trade with the Arizona Cardinals for pick number 27, 71, 90 and 27, 90 and 138 for pick 21. That's what I'm going to do. And the Arizona Cardinals are on the clock. Now, again, they need wide receiver help. They need offensive line help. They need defensive line help as well.
Did they get a defensive back earlier or no?
No, they grabbed Byron Murphy.
Okay, Cooper DeJean is like,
so
easy.
Screen.
Or Kool-Aid McKinstry as well,
right? And I think Gannon more so brings his defensive principles similar to the Vic Fangio style of defense. It's the uh, 3-4 as base. I'm sorry, nickel as his base, and doesn't really move a lot of guys around in the secondary or on the defensive line. Like they just stick right where they are. And I think you are right. Like the Terrion Arnold pick right here makes perfect sense. They need a cornerback. Arnold is not so much of a technician as Kool-Aid McKinstry is, but Arnold is much more athletic and projects better as an outside corner than Cooper DeJean. And I think they would leave Arnold as the right side cornerback in that defense. I'm going to go ahead and pick up Terrion Arnold. Oh, wait. I think he got picked up. I'm sorry. Not Terrion Arnold. Kool-Aid McKinstry. Pick up Kool-Aid McKinstry. He's much more of a technician, and they can use him just on one side of the ball. All right, Eric, you're up with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, so I was thinking Cooper DeJean here, but then I got to thinking about, kind of the point that you just made there, that Fangio is now there with the Eagles. And I don't think that Fangio is going to value the versatility that you would get with a guy like Cooper DeJean. So I don't think that he would necessarily be looking at somebody in that mold that you can move around, that could play some safety, that could play some corner. With that tackle run that happened before, I think they're going to be looking really strongly at defensive back. Can you go over to the corners and show me what's on the board?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I know who I want to go with here. Yep. So with McKinstry and Arnold going off, we're going to continue the cornerback run here and go with Nate Wiggins here, who I think is just more of a true cornerback than what Cooper DeJean is. I think that Vic Fangio would value him over DeJean.
All right. Nate Wiggins is the pick. All right. We have Arizona Cardinals back with pick number 23, and they already have their, correct me if I'm wrong, I think was Paris Johnson Jr. a left tackle or a right tackle for the Cardinals last year? Alf, do you remember?
He was right tackle. Right tackle, because they got Humphreys as their left tackle.
They have Humphreys as their left tackle. They also have Jonah Williams as well, which I think he projects as a left guard.
Yeah. DJ Humphreys, they paid him a lot of money. They extended him last year. He's their left tackle. So Paris Johnson is the right tackle.
And here's where they finally make their wide receiver pick as well. I think they're going to go ahead and select Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU. They need an alpha wide receiver as well, another weapon for Kyler Murray. They go ahead and take Brian Thomas Jr. I think that's a pretty good haul for the Arizona Cardinals. They get a stud defensive lineman, cornerback 1, and a wide receiver 1/2 for the offense.
Yeah, that's a new core. That's a new core for that team.
That's a pretty good core for the Cardinals. 3 first-round picks as well. All right, Eric, you're on the clock for the Dallas Cowboys.
This has to be a gift, right? The Cowboys just got a huge gift fall right in their lap.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the players that are listed as their likely picks, I think Alf's right that Xavier Worthy being available at this point would be tough for them to pass up. They could certainly use some help on the offensive line, but I don't know that they're going to want to go with the interior guys that are available here. You've got a guy like Worthy that has game-changing speed. It isn't just a speed guy either. He has the ability to make some tough catches. He got some physicality to him for his size. I think he's going to make somebody pretty happy. And with him falling here to the Cowboys, I think that they would take him with the lack of offensive line help that's available at this point.
Yeah, the flip side to that is they're moving Tyler Smith from left guard, he's one of the best players. He's one of the best offensive linemen, period, in football. They're moving Tyler Smith to left tackle. they're going to have an open spot at left guard, and they don't necessarily have a center right now. So they got Graham Barton, who can play center and can play guard, and they got JPJ here. I think that's something that they would consider.
Who's the pick again, Eric?
I said Xavier Worthy, but I mean, if we want to go with out of the two, I would say Graham Barton over JPJ. So if we want to go interior offensive line here for the Cowboys, give them somebody that could play center or could play guard depending on what they need. As the preseason shakes out.
Who do you want though? That's the big question. Who do you want for the Cowboys?
I said Worthy. I'll stick with Worthy.
Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy is the pick. He's ranked number 69 on the public board here. Another pass catcher. They still haven't locked up. Actually, they did lock up CD Lamb, right?
No, he hasn't signed his contract yet. I don't think.
So there you go. That's potentially a CD Lamb replacement. All right. Green Bay Packers are on the board here. They always take a defensive player here. And I mean, you have two great defensive players in Cooper DeJean, who can be a Swiss Army knife in the secondary, Jared Versey as an edge rusher. I mean, Alf, do they go for an offensive lineman here? Like, could they pick up Graham Barton? David Bakhtiari is gone. They could also pick up Jackson Powers Johnson. They could also pick up a gigantic left tackle in Amarius Mims. Do they go defender or do they plug a hole?
They could go in so many different directions. They got Elgin Jenkins at left guard. Zach Tom is going to play right tackle this season. So, they have a hole at left tackle. So Amarius Mims makes so much sense. And, he's like the quintessential, Packer offensive lineman, right?
Yeah.
Where it's a ton of potential and then he realizes it there in Green Bay. So they could go in a bunch of different directions. On the defense, remember that as far as their pass rush, they paid Rashawn Gary an extension, and they still have Preston Smith. They got pass rushers. Quay Walker's still there, so Lucas Van Ness is also there. So they got plenty of pass rushers. So they might feel comfortable passing on Jared Verse, and I would go Amarius Mims here.
Amarius Mims is the pick for the Green Bay Packers. They fill in a hole for a left tackle and another protector for quarterback Jordan Love. All right, Tampa Bay Buccaneers are on the clock, Eric.
Yeah, so looking at what's still on the board, I was pretty confident that I was going to go with a edge rusher here for the Buccaneers. Had you gone with Jared Verse for the Packers, and I'd have probably gone down and still gone with an edge and Chop Robinson. But since you went a different direction, we're going to make Jared Verse the pick here.
That is a great pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That defense was amazing. They gave up what? I think 19.7 points per game last year. Correct me if I'm wrong. They do need pass rush help as well. They just lost Shaq Barrett, who is now with the Miami Dolphins. They get younger on the defensive line and on the defensive side of the ball. All right. The Miami Dolphins are up. They do have two trade offers here with the Baltimore Ravens and the San Francisco 49ers. I'm the type of person, if I'm general manager Chris Greer, get as many picks as possible, get as many players, load up on the youngsters for 2025, 2026 as well, and not dish out so many contracts because you got to pay Tua, you got to pay Waddle, you got to pay Phillips, you got to pay Javon Holland as well. I do see where they could pick up Graham Barton or Jackson Powers Johnson. Cooper DeJean as well interests me. I imagine the versatility in the secondary. Weaver likes to play through multiple safeties and likes to play a lot of nickel and dime as well. That would interest me, but I really don't think they would go for a defensive back over here. I'm actually going to go ahead and trade with the Baltimore Ravens for pick 30 and 113 for 27. Let me see if I can snag 93. Ooh, that's interesting. I'm going to go ahead and snag pick 30 and 93 and trade 27 as well. All right, Baltimore Ravens are on the clock. I think they're going to go ahead and pick up another offensive lineman. They lost John Simpson over to the Jets.
They lost Zietler also.
They lost Zietler as well. They're going to go ahead and fill a need, and they're going to pick up Graham Barton. Buffalo Bills are on the clock, Eric.
Yeah, so I think the Bills are going to be a good candidate to trade up. I think they're going to be, pretty aggressive in trying to replace Stephon Diggs. I think that Brian Thomas would be a excellent replacement for them for Stephon Diggs. I think he does a lot of similar things to what Diggs
He was
did
already
for
drafted to Arizona.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm just saying that, in a few hours, I wouldn't be surprised to see Buffalo coming up from this spot to go after a Brian Thomas or another receiver. I do think that receiver is a huge need for them. With A.D. Mitchell on the board here, probably just going to go ahead and, go with that and hope they can, sort out the issues with him.
Didn't we talk about
hopefully not, to be honest. It's Buffalo, so I don't care if they do or not.
Didn't we talk about A.D. Mitchell to the Bills, Alf?
Yeah,
before?
yeah, that was the one. I'm rooting for that actually.
All right, we have the Lions on the clock. They had a really, really bad defense, man, especially in the secondary. I'm not gonna lie. They lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson to the Eagles in free agency. They need corner help. They need safety help. I mean, Cooper DeJean fits the bill here for the Lions. All right. Pick number 30 is in. Eric, you have the choice for the Miami Dolphins.
So you traded down on me twice and then left me pretty much nothing on the board here. Let's see. So JPJ is still on the board, right? What other options are we looking at?
You got Troy Franklin, Tyler Nubin as a safety. I love Ladd McConkey.
Xavier Worthy's still
let's
there?
go down a little more, just see what else.
Worthy's gone.
Worthy went to the Cowboys. Yeah.
We have Jordan Morgan, Adisa Isaac, Tyler Guyton, Chop Robinson, Keon Coleman, Roman Wilson, Jatavian Sanders.
Yeah, so I would not be thrilled to be in this scenario tonight. This is kind of why I don't like the trade down option, just because you have limited options, and when you trade down, and some of those guys that we've seen go, just probably 3 out of the previous 4 picks would have been guys that I would have drafted over Jackson Powers Johnson if we had the opportunity. But we saw those guys fly off the board. So if we got to this point, I think that Jackson Powers Johnson is a really good player. I think that he could play guard very well. I don't necessarily like the value of a guard in the first round, but we're getting almost to the end of the first round. And I think that he is one of the safer picks. I understand that, some of the mocks at this point have him falling to the Dolphins at 55. But with what's on the board right now, I would not risk waiting till 55 to hope that he fell to us. I would go ahead and pick Jackson Powers Johnson now.
Alf, if you were general manager Chris Greer and you had the 30th pick, who would you choose?
Yeah, this board is pretty thin, and if I had to evaluate, each position group that's here, like on the offensive line, it's kind of obvious. It's either Jackson Powers Johnson or Guyton. I think that's the only choice you can make right there. At wide receiver, it's essentially Ladd McConkey or nothing, and then you have to wait, for 55 to take a shot at maybe Robin Wilson or Ricky Pearsall. So I think it's almost like you're almost forced to take JPJ here.
Jackson Powers Johnson is the pick. I'm sorry, guys. The Dolphins needed those third
Yeah,
and
the
fourth
bad
round.
news is that you traded out of a bunch of like good players, but the
Right.
good news is you did get a guy that will play a lot of snaps,
Yep.
which is what they need to accomplish tonight. Tonight they need to go get a guy that will play starter snaps this season.
Yeah.
And that's why, even as good as Amarius Mims is, I would frown upon that because I do think he would have a redshirt year unless, Turn Armstead got injured and they moved him over to left tackle to back, to play in his place. But other than that, yeah, no mulligans this year. You got to get a guy that's going to give you snaps.
you need a quality starter as well. And hey, not bad to draft another offensive lineman. Protect Tua as well. He could be your future center in a couple years as well if Aaron Brewer doesn't work out.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And he allows you, the thing about JPJ, he allows you to do more things now on your offense. Now you can incorporate a lot of your lead runs that you weren't successful with last year when Robert Hunt went down. So, it expands your playbook and you have some versatility there. It's not inconceivable that, Aaron Brewer is actually really, really durable, but if he went down, you're not scrambling to teach somebody to play center anymore, and you're not hoping that Liam Eichenberg can do it. You could just move over JPJ if you can. He did have a year, snapping the football. Now he's not, he has his own issues snapping the football, but it does give you some versatility. That's, and he also played tackle for a few games at Oregon 2 years ago, so he fits the bill. Dolphins like versatile offensive lineman. JPJ can play three positions essentially.
All right, pick number 31. The San Francisco 49ers are on the clock. They have been rumored to trade up to grab either another wide receiver or an offensive lineman, and they have offered Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk in trade packages as well. I think they'll go ahead pick up an offensive lineman here. Where is Jordan Morgan? There he is. I think they'll pick up Jordan Morgan. They do have a need at guard. I don't see Morgan playing as a left tackle or a right tackle with the 49ers. I think he projects best, especially in that system, as a guard. So I'll go ahead and pick up Jordan Morgan for the San Francisco 49ers. All right, Eric, you have the defending Super Bowl champs in the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, so I don't know what names are going to be on the board tonight at 32, but this is another spot that seems, pretty confident that they'll be looking, very closely at the wide receivers on the board, especially with the issues that they have with Rashee Rice right now. So in this spot, with what's on the board, I'd go with Ladd McConkey here. I think he'd be a great target for Patrick Mahomes.
Absolutely.
That is a perfect fit for that Chiefs offense as well. He's a fantastic separator. He gets open as well. And this is our finalized first round mock draft for the scouting combine. I think we took into the best interests of every single NFL team here as well. The Dolphins, picked up pick 93, 94, and they picked up 93, which is in the third round, I believe, 94, which is also in the third round, and they picked up a fourth rounder as well. Now, day 2 and day 3, Eric, based off this mock, the Dolphins picked up Jackson Powers Johnson. Who else are you looking at for the Dolphins in the second and third round?
So as we get into the second and third round, per our previous mock draft, Keon Coleman was still there at 55. I think that he would be an excellent value there. Darius Robinson's still on the board. I don't expect him to make it to 55, but if he is, and that would be, a great move there. Ricky Pearsall, Mason Smith are both guys that I like. I don't know about round 2, but as we get into round 3, Cole Bishop is a guy that, as you guys know, I've been high on for a while. I would love to see him playing in Miami. And then you've got Xavier Legette, who I think, brings some of what I picture as being the wide receiver 3 for the Dolphins, somebody a little more physical that can contribute in the run game. A guy that, I really have my eye on also is Austin Booker,
Mm.
an edge, and he fits in terms of, the mold of the edges that Chris Greer has drafted. He fits in there very well. I'm not huge on his film, but the Dolphins talked with him at the combine, and they also had him in for a 30 visit. So there's definitely some interest in there, and that's a name that I would not be surprised to see,
Right.
as a Dolphin at the end of this.
Alf.
Yeah, pretty much the same names. Xavier Legette will be a huge target for me for 55, and I possibly might package one of those third rounders from 2025 to move up from 55 to make sure I secure him, because there was a pretty serious run on wide receivers in that first round. And yeah, pretty much all those names. I like Caleb Bullock, the free safety from USC. He's kind of one dimensional for now. He's very, very young, but he could play that high safety role in Miami that they kind of need right now, and that would allow them to move Javon Holland around and Jalen Ramsey around. So that would be a good thing. I love Cole Bishop as well. I mentioned him as a guy that you could safely pass on Cooper DeJean in the first round if you have a high second round pick, because you could target that for Cole Bishop. So I agree there. We have Jackson Powers Johnson. Would you double dip with Christian Haynes or Christian Mahogany? Possibly. That would really solidify the interior of that offensive line, and that would go a long way to keeping Tua upright, especially Christian Haynes. I think he's a fabulous prospect. And yeah, all those wide receivers, they all fit. They're all pretty good, targets to have for 55. But Xavier Legette, in my opinion, is the prize going forward. He's at the top of this class. As far as an edge rusher, Berlin Trice from Washington is a guy that I really, really like. So that's another guy I would look at. And of course, there's always the target of opportunity. There's a possibility. I don't think he makes it to the 90s, okay? But it's a possibility he can make it to the 40s. And if you have a trade up in hand, how do you pass up on a talent like TJ Tampa? It could be a redundant talent, but Jalen Ramsey's not going to be here forever. He is expensive. If you look at his contract, he's going to be here next year and the year after that. That's a fact. Okay, so he'll be here through 2024 and 2025. There's no guarantee he'll be here for 2026.
Right.
If you have guys online ready to play, that'd be a good thing. If you added another cornerback, that allows you to move Kendall Fuller around. It allows you to move Jalen Ramsey around. You can play Jalen Ramsey in that star role. You can play Jalen Ramsey as the deep middle in cover 3. You could do a lot of different things, So, yeah, this is a very, very good draft. I've heard some people say, "Oh, this is not a very good draft." This is a very, very good draft, and this is part of the reason why. Yeah, your approach probably cost us a couple of good players on our board, but you want picks in the top 100 in this draft. And your approach got us 4, right? So we ended up with 4 picks in the top 100. That's a good thing, And remember, you still have the draft cap. People forget about that. People think, "Oh my God, that's all we have." No, you could dip into the little piggy bank. You have 3 third rounders next year. Now you can only trade 1, because you only have 1 in hand, which is your own next year. But you have 2 more coming to you. So you have that one to play with. That's the chip that he has in his quiver to be able to play tonight. And
I think you could even
play it tomorrow, I guess.
Yeah, I think you could even look at the second round pick next year as being a chip that could be used if a player, they just really want a player, because, having the 3 thirds next year, if you trade a second in this draft, you can still get back up into the second round next year with 2 of those third round picks, most likely.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I agree.
I agree with almost everything you guys are saying. However, I do have a differentiation in terms of the second round. I do think, the Dolphins, they do lack number 3 wide receiver, and I think they could grab one in the second round. They could use one of those third rounders for 2025 and possibly even this year's draft with the haul that we just got. to move up to be in the 40s and pick up either Ricky Pearsall or Xavier Legette, or as we know, Jatavian Sanders, who's been meeting with the Dolphins multiple times. That adds another layer, that adds another dimension to this Dolphins offense. Jonnu Smith is here for 2 years. Durham Smythe's extension lasts till after the 2026 season, I believe. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. You're investing in a young tight end, a very, very athletic tight end. And you're not going to see immediate contribution from him, but over the course of the years, you're most likely going to lock up Jalen Waddle. You're going to have Jatavian Sanders as well, and he's going to fit the mold of this Mike McDaniel type of tight end who can catch, who can block, who can gain a lot of yards after the catch. That's your George Kittle type over there that can be, a long-term offensive fit. I'm also looking at pass rusher. This linebacker group is not very good, so we're seeing Edgerrin Cooper fall. He puts on maybe 10, 15 more pounds. You put his hand in the dirt and let him go. Just let him get after the quarterback. Taking a look at his body profile, he has shorter arms, so it will make it a bit tougher for him to tackle, especially on the second level. But if you put in, 10, 15 more pounds, put his hand in the dirt, let him fly, there's your guy right there that can, be right next to Jalen Phillips and, potentially offload Bradley Chubbs' contract. The other wide receiver I'm looking at potentially in the third round, they can trade up into the 70s, maybe even the 80s for UCF's Javon Baker. 6'1". He plays bigger than his size. He's around 195 pounds. His catch radius is phenomenal. He's an alpha. He's an X. You need a guy who can be a dog outside of Tyreek Hill and your future wide receiver too. Another edge rusher I'm looking at is Washington's Braylon Trice as well, and another safety in Malik Mustafa from Wake Forest. Later round safety Trey Taylor as well, and a running back who I really, really like in this draft class. I think that Mike McDaniel may take a shot on Rasheen Ali from Marshall. Eric, I know you and I spoke about him a little bit. We dove a little bit deep on him as well. And I mean, give him that open hole that Dolphins offensive line could create, that they've created with Devon Achane. You put Rasheen Ali in that, give Achane some breathing room. Oof. I think that running game with Rasheen Ali and Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert would be deadly. All right, everybody, we are well past the hour mark. Thank you guys so much for joining into our pre-draft live stream. We will be back at 7:45 for round 1 of the NFL draft. We hear it's going to be very, very chaotic, and, let's see who the Miami Dolphins pick with the 21st pick, or if they trade back. Go Fins, everybody.
Thanks a lot, guys.